Hey guys, welcome back. And today I thought, wouldn't it be fun to talk about Grandma? A lot of you know her as Mama Kay from her Joyful Life Bible studies. And, it was amazing to see like 2 to 3,000 women gathered to her Bible studies weekly for decades. And that just goes to show you how anointed she was by the Holy Spirit to exhort and to disciple and to encourage the ladies that God had put around her. So I just thought it'd be great to give you some more maybe behind the scenes of what Grandma Kay was like. Right now, I have some of the great grandkids here to ask some questions, and we'll kind of do it like an interview style.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Okay. I do have a question for you. Since you traveled all around the world with your grandparents, was there a specific memory that really stood out to you?
Grandma traveled a lot. I think they traveled to Israel over 30 times. And so she was like a professional at, packing the bags, being prepared. And I learned to put like all the toiletries or anything that could leak out in baggies. We learned how to fold our clothes a certain way in her suitcase. One thing my grandma was, she was always prepared, And one time we were in Hungary together. And for some reason, Grandpa, I don't know why he wasn't there. I can't remember. But Grandma and I were sharing a room. And we're in Hungary, in Budapest, and at the hotel, and sharing a room with each other. And the lights all turned off. And the electricity went out. And here we are, like in the complete dark. And we heard a noise down the hall. And both of us reached into our bags, and almost at the same time we turned on our flashlights. So we started giggling even though we had heard a noise down in the hall. We're like, what's going on? Both of us looked at each other like, we're prepared, with the light. And we just giggled. And then shortly after that, the light turned on. And I just remember that it was a memory that just stuck in my mind of travel.
What was one of your favorite memories?
Some of the travels would be on tour buses, and the tour bus would stop, and she would send Grandpa out. She's like, Charles, go get me some chocolate. And so Grandpa would go on a stop and get her like a little square of chocolate or a chocolate bar or whatever, and he'd bring it back to the bus. And if I was sitting behind her, she would just get her little portion that she wanted, because she'd always say, I just want a bite. I just want a bite. And then she would give me the rest of the chocolate bar. And she's like, here, Vanessa, take it. I just wanted the bite. And so I thought that was cute, because it's like it just made traveling with her fun. And like I said, she loved chocolate, and so do I.
Can you dive into more of the classy part of Grandma?
Grandma was such a classy lady. She was prim and proper. She loved etiquette. She loved linguistics. She, being, her dad was the senior accountant at the Doheny Oil Company of Los Angeles. They lived in like a well-to-do life. And Grandma, she just learned sophistication. I think she also worked either as a legal secretary or for the mayor or something like that. So she always knew how to dress. She knew how to be around like proper situations, etiquette, and all this kind of stuff. And she took care, but it wasn't an over thing. She didn't overdo it. Like at home, she was casual, and so you just felt like when she went out, she wanted to represent well. She wanted to represent the Lord well. She wanted to represent her position as the pastor's wife and Mama Kay. And so she did. She just, she always had herself so together. And she was just as genuine and fun, but she did just carry herself well. I knew she could be sitting before kings and queens and governors and all this. And she knew she had that etiquette in her. And I love that. In fact, in Europe, when I was with her, she was teaching me, we'd be at some of these hotels that had really fine dining in it. And so she would teach me, okay, this is a fork for this. You know, you use a spoon for this. This is for the dessert. Here's where the water goes. And it was fun for me. I just felt, oh, this is so great learning these things. And it was a fun time together.
Hey, Mom, Grandma was adopted, right? So what is her birth story?
As the story goes, she was 6 weeks old when she was left at a home in Los Angeles that took care of babies and children whose parents were in custody disputes. So apparently the courts had ordered that kids be in like a neutral zone if they were in like a custody battle. So she was dropped off there, and Miss Woods is who placed her in that care. She said her baby's father's name was John Woods, and they called her Catherine. So Miss Woods paid for the first month of Catherine's care and supplied beautiful baby clothes for her, and she never returned. In the following months, she wrote letters to Miss Johnson, who had taken her in, and sent more clothes and paid for more of Catherine's care. She didn't supply a return address, but postmarks were from all over the United States. Finally, after several months, these letters and support stopped. About 4 years later, Miss Woods called Miss Johnson and asked if she could visit little Catherine. Miss Johnson replied, "If you come to see her, you have to take her." Miss Woods declined. Here's a story that Grandma always told. She said she remembered a time when she was playing in the front yard and a large car kept driving by very slowly. She could see that someone was watching her. So she showed off a little bit, and she believed that was her parents watching her. And what my aunt had discovered later was that her birth parents were part of the Hollywood scene. Her birth mom was a Hollywood actress called a professional beauty at the time, and it looks like that she had been in a few quite of the B movies they used to call, and even did a Flying A studio movie where actually my grandpa's mom had worked. Now, they wouldn't have been at the same zone, but I thought it was really interesting for Grandpa Charles. His mom worked at the Flying A studios, and Grandma, her mom, had done a movie in that same studio. So we just find that kind of interesting on both sides of my grandparents were these actresses and actors connections. My grandma's adoptive parents, her father was Oscar, and he was Swedish. Now, her adoptive mother was Minnie Ethel O'Judy Williams Johnson. And the reason why she had such a long name is because she was previously married and widowed, and they take on the last names. And she had a daughter, Louise Ethel Williams. We used to call her Annie Easy, so I'm just going to call her Annie Easy.
What was Grandma's childhood like?
Grandma grew up in the Foursquare denomination, and she attended the Angelus Temple church in Los Angeles. Her parents actually played instruments in the silver band there. So Grandma's family were part of the Foursquare church, and Grandpa, his mom and dad, got saved at a Foursquare revival meeting in Ventura. So it's kind of just interesting to see how God was working in their lives to bringing them together.
How did Chuck and Kay first meet?
So Grandpa had already graduated from Life Bible College, and Grandma was attending there. Grandpa had come up and to watch his brother play baseball, and Grandma was just there to watch the baseball game. And when Grandma was walking up, apparently Grandpa dusted off the seat for her and asked her if she wanted to sit by him. And he loved her beautiful blue eyes and her striking dark hair, and she obliged, and she said, sure. So she sat with him. Then after, he asked her if he could take her home. And the funny story of this is, and this just shows you their humor and their wit and stuff. But Grandpa, being a little rascal, he walked her over to this dilapidated car, and he opened the door and sat her in. You know, this is the time where the cars weren't locked or anything like that. So he just opened the door, she sat in, and then he stood back and started laughing. And she's looking at him, and she's like, "Why are you laughing?" And he said, I'm sorry, Kate, this is not my car. Come in my car. And he had a really nice car. Grandpa liked nice cars. He liked strong, fast cars. And he had this car. He said that he had a really good engine. And there was apparently a hill in Los Angeles that was hard for other cars to get up. And I don't know where this is, but he tells a story where there's another guy that liked my grandma, and he was trying to follow them. Well, he was following them on a date, and he knew that that guy's car was too weak to get up the hill. So he takes off up this hill, and he says he can see that the guy's car was struggling, to gain speed with them. And Grandpa just floored it and just took up, got over the hill, and there they were off into the sunset. And after they met and married in 6 weeks. And so they just knew, they just fell in love, immediately. And so that's how they met. And, their marriage was just so beautiful. Go ahead.
That's how they met.
That's how they met.
Right?
Okay, yeah. When she got married, Grandpa and her went right into ministry. And what the Lord did for the next 17 years of their life was a powerful, kind of like a breaking, a pruning, a equipping years, as my grandma calls it. They went from both having affluent homes to hardly making any money. And with that struggle, Grandma had to learn how to trust in the Lord. Grandpa was making, almost just a little over what a month's rent would cover. So really, they would go sometimes not knowing when they would have their next meal. And literally, they'd have enough money for rent, but they didn't know where dinner would come from. And God would consistently and constantly have somebody just divinely send a letter that day, and they would open it up and there'd be a check, or there'd be some cash, or people would drop off groceries, or just they would see God's divine hand in the supplying of all their needs. And so Grandma talks about those 17 years as being those that she learned her life verse to trust in the Lord with all her heart, and to lean not onto her own understanding, but in all of her ways to acknowledge him, and he would direct her paths. And she took that really to heart.
What spiritual gift do you think she operated in the most?
Grandma's spiritual gifts were many. I mean, the one dynamic thing that I knew constantly about Grandma is she was filled with the Holy Spirit. Her spiritual gift of discernment was something that I think was so monumental in their movement, their church, their ministry, because God used that as a strength for my grandpa. My grandpa was so gracious and trusting of so many people, and Grandma, through the Holy Spirit, would she could discern, like, is this person really being on point? Are they telling the truth, or what? God gave her this special awareness. One day, a guy came to the house. I think it was when they were pastoring in Huntington, and she told him, Chuck, you can't go out there. He has a gun. I believe he has a gun. And, Grandpa, okay, well, I feel like I need to go out. So Grandpa actually went out, got in the car with this guy. And as the guy was talking to my grandpa, the guy did pull out a gun on my grandpa. And that story just showed you, like, God would just talk to her and tell her things. And I just attribute that to her walk with the Lord. Like, she constantly was talking to the Lord.
What was a phrase that she said that really stuck with you?
Every girl needs a little penny. And so that was our little saying between each other, because, when I was a teenager and I could drive, I'd go in the office and she'd say, Nessa, do you need a little penny? And I was kind of embarrassed to say yes, but there's times I just smiled and she goes, come here. And she'd get her little wallet out and she'd pull out some money and give it to me. And you'd see this big smile on her face because, she just enjoyed blessing her grandkids. And it was just sweet to be, that she would even know, hey, a girl needs her little penny.
What was your favorite part about living with Grandma and Grandpa?
Grandpa wanted her to be able to stay at home more, and he still wanted to travel. So I was asked to move back in, and I love just seeing their marriage. I just love seeing the genuineness of who they were, and that it was all about the Lord. I mean, they would play, the radio station on in their home in their intercom, and they would be singing songs. Grandpa would be, like I said, making her granola or coffee or breakfast or dinner, and he really was a good cook, and so she let him have that role. And just their day-to-day life, my brother talks about it in her memorial at Diamond Bar. It's cute to hear him talk about that, because he actually lived the longest as any grandkid with my grandparents. And for me, one of the things I really liked when Grandpa would travel would be just Grandma and I. And I would be working, and I would call her and go, Grandma, what would you like for dinner? In-N-Out cheeseburger, vanilla shake, and fries. And I loved it because I was single and I didn't really know how to cook. And so I was like, I love In-N-Out too. So I would go and do the drive-thru, and we would eat our cheeseburgers together. And it was just so fun to be with her. One of the best memories I have of them is sitting at the table with each other and praying over things and eating meals together, and just always having a heart to talk about what God was doing and what God had done. And I just love that. I love them. My grandma was an amazing woman. And for those of you that know her, you know the power of the Holy Spirit in her, her prayer language, her heart, her Mama Kay, that women would know how to please the Lord. If you haven't listened to any of her teachings, please go to pastorchuck.org and just give a listen. Like I said, she's an exhorter. She's going to just lead you to Jesus, and she's going to encourage you to stay on that narrow path. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I hope you just enjoyed hearing a little bit about who Mama Kay was, and we'll be looking to do more of these soon. God bless you guys.